Good evening. My name is Rob McIntosh, and I have the privilege of being one of the theater teachers here at Repertory Company High School for Theater Arts, and you are here to see our ninth grade acting class showcase. It's been my honor to work with these remarkable students through the bizarre medium of Zoom. I've gotten to know them through the screen and gotten to really appreciate and admire their talent and tenacity. What you're going to see this evening is an evening of scenes from our Encores showcase. This is 10 years of plays performed and produced here at Repertory Company High School. It's going to be, in fact, our main stage show at the end of the year in the spring, and the freshman class has gotten a head start working on this extraordinary material, some of the greatest plays in the canon of world theater, going all the way back to Oedipus the King, one of the very first plays ever performed, up to some very contemporary work like the Laramie Project. So I've been really honored to work with these kids who have done just remarkable work under extraordinary circumstances. You're going to see 4 classes over the course of 2 days. This evening, you'll see one class. It'll be about 45 minutes of scenes. There will be a brief intermission so that the next group can start at 6. And then tomorrow, you'll see another group starting at 5 and another group starting at 6 as well. I encourage you to come and watch all of it, or as much as you can. Some of the scenes are repeated. You'll see them, performed by multiple students in multiple ways in each of the classes. And some of the scenes you'll see performed only once. Okay, that's enough of me. I'm really proud of these kids. They've done just extraordinary work under really difficult conditions. And it's been my privilege to work with them. So on with the show.
Yes, life can be a barrel of disappointments sometimes.
Honey, Big Walter would come in here some nights back then, sometime on the couch there, and look at the rug, and look at me, and look at the rug, and then back at me. And I know he was down, really down. And then, Lord, when I lost that baby little Claude, I almost thought I was going to lose Big Walter too. Oh, that man grieved himself. He was one man to love his children.
Ain't nothing can tear at you like losing your baby.
I guess that's how come that man finally worked himself to death like he done. Like he was fighting his own war with this here world that took his baby from him.
He sure was a fine man, all right. I always liked Mr. Younger.
Crazy about his children. God knows there was plenty wrong with Walter Younger. Hard-headed, mean, kind of wild with women. Plenty was wrong with him. But he sure loved his children. Always wanted them to have something, be something. That's where brother gets all these notions, I reckon. Big Walter used to say he'd get right wet in the eyes sometimes, lean his head back with the water standing in his eyes and say, "Seems like God didn't see fit to give the black man nothing but dreams. But he did give us children to make the dreams seem worth a while." He could talk like that, don't you know?
Yes, he sure could. He was a good man, Mr. Younger.
Yes, a fine man. Just could never catch up with his dreams, that's all.
What could be so dirty on that woman's rugs that she has to vacuum them every single day?
There were certain young women around here who I could name would take inspiration about certain rugs in a certain apartment. I could also mention.
How much cleaning can a house need, for Christ's sakes?
Benny.
Just listen to her. Just listen.
Oh, God.
If you use the Lord's name just one more time.
Mama.
Just fresh as salt, this girl.
Well, if the salt loses its savor.
Now that will do. I just ain't gonna have you round here reciting the scriptures in vain. You hear me?
How did I manage to get on everybody's wrong side by just walking into a room?
If you weren't so fresh.
Bruce, I'm 20 years old.
What time you be home from school today?
Kind of late. Madeline is going to start my guitar lessons today.
Your what kind of lessons?
Guitar.
Oh, Father.
How come you done taking it in your mind to learn to play the guitar?
I just want to, that's all.
Lord, child, don't you know what to do with yourself? How am I going to be before you get tired of this now? Like you got tired of that little play acting group you joined last year? And what was it the year before that?
The horseback riding club for which he brought that $50 riding habit that's been hanging in the closet ever since.
Why I gotta flit so from one thing to another, baby?
I just want to learn to play the guitar. Is there anything wrong with that?
Ain't nobody trying to stop you. I just wonder sometimes why you has to flit so from one thing to another all the time. You ain't never done nothing with all that camera equipment you brought home.
I don't flit. I experiment with different forms of expression.
Like riding a horse.
People have to express themselves one way or another.
What is it you want to express?
Me! Don't worry, I don't expect you to understand.
Who are you going out with tomorrow night?
George Murchison again?
Ooh, you're getting a little sweet on him.
You ask me, this child ain't sweet on nobody but herself. Express herself.
Oh, I like George all right, Mama. I mean, I like him enough to go out with him and stuff, but...
What does and stuff mean?
Mind your own business.
Picking at her now, Ruth. What does it mean?
Oh, I just mean I couldn't ever really be serious about George. He's so shallow.
Shallow? What do you mean he's shallow? He's rich.
Hush, Ruth.
I know he's rich. He knows he's rich too.
Well, what other qualities a man gotta have to satisfy you, little girl?
You wouldn't even begin to understand. Anybody who married Walter could not possibly understand.
What kind of way is that to talk about your brother?
Brother is a flip. Let's face it.
What's a flip?
She's saying he's crazy.
Not crazy. Brother isn't really crazy yet. He's an elaborate neurotic.
Hush your mouth.
As for George, well, George looks good. He's got a beautiful car and he takes me to nice places. And as my sister-in-law says, he is probably the richest boy I will ever get to know. And I even like him sometimes. But if the youngers are sitting around waiting to see if little Benny is going to tie up the family with the Murchisons, they're wasting their time.
You mean you wouldn't marry George Murchison if he'd asked you someday? That pretty rich thing? Honey, I knew you was odd.
No, I would not marry him if all I felt for him was what I feel now. Besides, George's family wouldn't really like it.
Why not?
Oh, Mama, the Murchisons are honest to God, real live, rich colored people. And the only people in the world who are more snobbish than rich white people are rich colored people. I thought everybody knew that. I've met Mrs. Murchison. She's a scene.
You must not dislike people because they're well off, honey.
Why not? It makes just as much sense of disliking people because they're poor. And lots of people do that.
Well, she'll get over some of this.
Get over it. What are you talking about, Ruth? Listen, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm not even worried about who I'm going to marry yet, if I ever get married.
If? Now, Benny.
Oh, I probably will, but first I'm going to be a doctor. And George, for one, still thinks that's pretty funny. I couldn't be bothered with that. I'm going to be a doctor, and everybody around here better understand that.
Of course you're going to be a doctor, honey. God willing.
That hasn't got anything to do with it.
Benitha, that just wasn't necessary.
Well, neither is God. I get sick of hearing about God.
Benitha!
I mean it. I'm just tired of hearing about God all the time. What has he got to do with anything? Does he pay tuition?
You about to get your fresh little jaw slapped.
That's just what she needs, all right.
Why? Why can't I say what I want to say around here like everybody else?
Don't sound nice for a young girl to say things like that. You wasn't brought up that way. Me and your father went to trouble to get you and your brother to church every Sunday.
Mama, you don't understand. It's all a matter of ideas, and God is just one idea I don't accept. It's not important. I'm not going out and be immoral or commit crimes because I don't believe in God. I don't even think about it. It's just that I get tired of hearing him get credit for all the things the human race achieves through its own stubborn effort. There simply is no blasted God. There's only man, and it is he who makes the miracles.
Now, you say after me, in my mother's house, there is still God. In my mother's house, there is still God.
In my mother's house, There is still God.
There are some ideas we ain't going to have in this house, not long as I am at the head of this family.
Yes, ma'am.
You think you're a woman, Benny? But you still a little girl. What you did was childish. So, you got treated like a child.
I see. I also see that everybody thinks it's all right for Mama to be a tyrant, but all the tyranny in the world will never put a God in the heavens.
Well, I took off on my bicycle about 5 p.m. on Wednesday from my dorm. I just kind of felt like going for a ride. So I went to the top of Cactus Canyon, and I'm not super familiar with that area, so on my way back down, I didn't know where I was going. I was just sort of picking the way to go. It just makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there was no way I was going to go that way. So I was in some deep ass sand and I wanted to turn around, but for some reason I kept going. And I went along and there was this rock on the ground, and I just drilled it. I went over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. So I got up and I was sort of dusting myself off and looking around. And I noticed something, which ended up to be Matt. And he was just lying there by a fence. And I just thought it was a scarecrow. I was like, Halloween's coming up. I thought it was a Halloween gag, so I didn't think much of it. So I got my bike, walked it around the fence that was there. It was a buck-type fence. And I got closer to him, and I noticed his hair. And that was the major key to me knowing he was a human being, was his hair. Because I just thought it was a dummy, seriously. I even noticed the chest going up and down. I still thought it was a dummy, you know? I thought it was some kind of mechanism. But when I saw his hair, I knew it was a human being. So I ran to the nearest house, and I just ran as fast as I could and called the police.
I responded to the call. When I got there, at first the only thing I could see was partially somebody's feet. I got out of my vehicle and raced over. I seen what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old, because he was so tiny, laying on his back. He was tied to the bottom of the pole. I did the best I could. The gentleman was lying on the ground, Matthew Shepard. He was covered in dry blood all over his head, and there was dry blood underneath him, and he was barely breathing. He was doing the best he could. I was going to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth open. His mouth wouldn't open for me. He was covered in, like I said, dry blood all over his head. The only place he did not appear to have dry blood was on his face, which appeared to be where he had been crying for hours. His head was distorted, it didn't look normal. He looked as if he had a real harsh head wound.
I was working in the emergency room the night Matthew Shepard was brought in. I don't think that any of us can remember seeing a patient in that condition for a long time. Those of us who've worked in big city hospitals have seen this. But we have some people here who've not worked in a big city hospital, and it's not something you expect here. You expect it. You expect this kind of injuries to come from a car going down a hill at 80 miles an hour. You expect to see gross injuries from something like that, this horrendous, terrible thing. But you don't expect to see that from someone doing this to another person. The ambulance report said it was a beating, so we knew.
There was nothing I could do. I mean, if there was anything I could have done to help him, I would have done it, but there was nothing. And I was yelling at the top of my lungs at him, trying to get something out of him. Like, hey, wake up, hello? But he didn't move, he didn't flinch, he didn't anything.
He was tied to the fence. His hands were thumbs out of what we call cuffing position. The way we handcuff people. He was bound with real thin white rope. It went around the bottom of the pole about 4 inches off the ground. His shoes were missing, and he was tied extremely tight. So I used my boot knife and tried to get it between his wrist and the pole. I had to be extremely careful not to harm Matthew any farther.
Your first thought is, well, certainly you'd like to think that it's someone from out of town that comes through and beats somebody. I mean, things like this happen, you know? Stuff happens, and it happens in Laramie. But if there's been somebody who's been beaten repeatedly, this is certainly something that offends us. I think that's a good word. It offends us.
He was bound so tight. I finally got my knife through there. I'm sorry. We rolled him over to his left side. When we did that, he quit breathing. Immediately, I put him back on his back, and that was just enough of an adjustment. It gave me enough room to cut him free there. I seen the EMS unit trying to get to his location. Once the ambulance got there, we put a neck collar on him, placed him on a backboard, and scooted him underneath the fence. Then Rob drove the ambulance to Iverson's hospital's emergency room.
Now, the strange thing is, 20 minutes before Matthew came in, Eric McKinney was brought in by his girlfriend. Now, I guess he had gotten into a fight later on that night back in town, so I'm working on Aaron, and the ambulance comes in with Matthew. Now, at this point, I don't know that there's a connection at all. So I tell Aaron to wait, and I go and treat Matthew. So there's Aaron in one room of the ER and Matthew in another room 2 doors down. Now, as soon as we saw Matthew, it was very obvious that his care was beyond our capabilities. Called the neurosurgeon at Poudre Valley Hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. And he was on the road in 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think.
They showed me a picture. Days later, I saw a picture of Matthew. I would have never recognized him.
Then, 2 days later, I found out the connection. And I was very, very struck. They were 2 kids. They were both my patients, and they were 2 kids. I took care of both of them, of both bodies, and for a brief moment, I wondered if this is how God feels when he looks down at us. We're all his kids, our bodies, our souls. And I felt a great deal of compassion for both of them.
How can you try to defend this
Guys,
kid?
He's not
Guys,
guilty.
come
You
on.
know he's not
There's
guilty.
no
Literally,
Evidence
you have
is
all
given.
the, there's so much
Stop
evidence
this
he's not
arguing.
Fine.
guilty.
He
Speaking
killed
over each
him.
other is not going to solve
He is
anything.
not
We're a hung
guilty.
jury.
We're a hung jury. Let's be honest about it.
Do you truly feel there is no room for reasonable doubt?
Yes, I do.
I beg your pardon, but maybe you don't understand the term reasonable doubt.
What do you mean I don't understand it? Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? How do you like this guy? He comes over here running for his life, and before he can even take a big breath, he's telling us how to run the show. The arrogance of him.
No one here is asking where anyone came from.
I was born right here.
or where your father came from.
Maybe it wouldn't hurt us to take a few tips from people who come running and learn something we don't know. We're not so perfect.
Please. I am used to this. It's all right. Thank you.
It's not all right.
Okay, I apologize. Is that what you want?
That's what I want.
All right, let's start the arguing. Who's got something constructive to say?
Well, something's been bothering me a little. This whole business about the stab wound and how it was made, the downward angle of it, you know?
Don't tell me we're going to start that. They went over and over it in court.
I know they did, but I didn't go along with it. The boy is 5 feet 8 inches tall. His father was 6 feet 2 inches tall. That's a difference of 6 inches. It's a very awkward way to stab down into the chest of someone who's a half foot taller than you.
Look, you're not going to be satisfied till you see it again. I'm going to give you a demonstration. Somebody get up. Okay, now watch this. I don't want to have to do it again. Is this 6 inches?
That's more than 6 inches.
Okay, let it be more.
Look out!
What's the matter with you?
Now just calm down. Nobody's hurt, are they?
No, nobody's hurt.
All right, there's your angle. Take a look at it. Down and in. That's how I stab a taller man in the chest, and that's how it was done. Take a look at it and tell me I'm wrong.
Down and in. I guess there's no argument.
Have you ever stabbed a man?
Of course not.
Did you?
All right, let's not be silly.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Where do you get all information about how it's done?
What do you mean? It's just common sense.
Have you ever seen a man stabbed?
No.
All right. I want to ask you something. The boy is an experienced knife fighter. He was even sent to reform school for knifing someone. Isn't that so?
That's right.
Look at this. Doesn't it look like an awkward way to handle a knife?
What are you asking me for?
Wait a minute. What's the matter with me? Give me that knife.
Have you seen a knife fight?
Yes, I have.
In the movies?
In my backyard, on my stoop, in the vacant lots across the street. Too many of them. Switch knives came with the neighborhood where I lived. Funny that I didn't think of it before. Guess try to forget those things. Anyone who's ever used a switch knife would never have stabbed downward. You don't handle switch knife that way. You use it underhand.
Then he couldn't have made the kind of wound that killed his father.
I suppose it's conceivable that he could have made the wound. It's not likely. Not if he'd ever had any experience with switch knives. And we know that the kid had a lot of experience.
I don't believe it.
Neither do I. You're giving us a lot of mumbo jumbo.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know.
What about you?
Listen, I'll tell you all something. I'm a little sick of this whole thing already. We're getting nowhere fast. Let's break it up and go home.
Before we decide anything more, I would like to try to pull this together.
This should be good.
He has a right. Let him go.
Do you want me to time this too?
Let's hear him.
I'm in advertising. I'm used to the big shots pulling things together. Let's ship up a few shots to see if any of them land on the green.
I want you to look at this logically and consistently.
We have. Guilty.
I want to know, is the kid smart or is the kid dumb?
What do you mean?
This is a kid who has gone to reform school for knife fighting. The night of the murder, he bought a knife, a switch knife. It would then take a very stupid kid to go and murder a man, his father, when an instrument everyone would associate with the kid.
I quite agree. He's dumb.
However, if you were dumb, then why did he make the kind of wound that an inexperienced man would make with a knife?
I'm not sure I understand.
To murder someone must take a great emotion, great hatred, and at that moment he would handle a knife as best as he could, and a trained knife fighter would handle it as best as he'd been trained. Underhand. A man who had not been trained would go overhand. But the kid's being very smart. Everyone knows he is an experienced knife fighter, so he is smart enough at that moment to make the kind of wound that an amateur would make. That man is a smart man, smart enough to wipe the fingerprints away, perhaps even smart enough to wait until an L train was going by in order to cover the noise. Now, is the kid smart, or is he dumb?
Hey now, wait a minute.
Well, the woman across the L train saw the murder through the L train. So someone in the L train could have seen the murder too.
A possibility, but no one did we know of.
It would take an awfully dumb man to take that chance, doing the murder as the train.
Exactly. A dumb man. A very stupid man. A man swept by emotion. Probably heard nothing. He probably didn't hear the train coming. However, did murder the father. Did it as well as he could.
So?
The kid is dumb enough to do everything to associate himself with the switch knife murder. And then a moment after the murder, he becomes smart. The kid is smart enough to make a kind of wound that will lead us to suspect someone else. And yet at the same instant, he's dumb enough to do the killing as an L train is going by. Then a moment later, he's smart enough to wipe fingerprints away. To make this boy guilty, you have to say he's dumb from 8 o'clock until about midnight. And then about midnight, he's smart 1 second, then dumb for a few seconds, and then smart again, and then once again becomes stupid. So stupid that he's not thinking of a good alibi. Now, is this kid smart, or is he dumb? To say that he is guilty, you have to toss his intelligence like a pancake. There is doubt, doubt, doubt.
I hadn't thought of that.
And the old man downstairs, on the stand, he swore it was 15 seconds. He insisted on 15 seconds. But we all agree that it must have been almost 40 seconds.
Does the old man lie half of the time, and then does he tell the truth the other half of the time?
For the kid to be guilty, he must be stupid and smart and stupid and then smart and so on. And also, for the kid to be guilty, the old man downstairs must be a liar half the time, and then the other half the time he must tell the truth. You can reasonably doubt.
I'm sold on reasonable doubt.
I think I am too.
I wanted more talk, and now I've had it.
I want another vote.
Hey, there's another vote called for. I guess the quickest way is a show of hands. Anybody object? Right. All those voting not guilty, raise your hands. Nine. All those voting guilty? 3. The vote is 9-3 in favor of acquittal.
I don't understand you people. How can you believe this kid is innocent? Look, you know how these people lie. I don't have to tell you. They don't know what the truth is. And let me tell you, they don't need any big reason to kill someone either. You know, they get drunk and bang, someone's lying in a gutter. Nobody's blaming them. That's how they are. You know what I mean? Violent. Human life don't mean as much to them as it does to us. Hey, where are you all going? Look, these people are drinking and fighting all the time, and if somebody gets killed, so somebody gets killed, they don't care. Oh, sure, there are some good things about them too. Look, I'm the first to say that. I've known a few who were pretty decent, but that's the exception. Most of them, it's like they have no feelings. They can do anything. What's going on here? What's going on here? I'm speaking my piece and you listen to me. They're no good. There's not one of them who's any good. We better watch out. Take it from me, this kid on trial. Well, don't you know about them? Listen to me. What are you doing? I'm trying to tell you something.
If you open your mouth again, I'm going to split your skull.
I'm only trying to tell you.
All right. Everybody sit down. I still believe the boy is guilty of murder. I'll tell you why. To me, the most damning evidence was given by the woman across the street who claimed she saw the murder actually committed.
That's right. As far as I'm concerned, that's the most important testimony.
All right, let's go over her testimony. What exactly did she say?
I believe I can recount it accurately. She said that she went to bed at about 11 o'clock that night. Her bed was next to the open window, and she could see directly into the window across the street. She tossed and turned for over an hour, unable to fall asleep. Finally, she turned toward the window at about 12:10, and as she looked out, she saw the boy stab his father. As far as I can see, this is unshakable testimony.
That's what I mean. That's the whole case.
Well, frankly, in view of this, I don't see how you can vote for an acquittal. Hey, what do you think about it?
There's so much evidence to sift.
What do you mean, maybe? He's absolutely right. You can throw out all the other evidence.
That was my feeling. I don't deny the validity of the points he has made. Shall we say that on one side of the tracks there is doubt? But what about the woman? The story? She saw it.
What time is it?
10 minutes of 6.
You don't suppose they'd let us go home and finish it in the morning? I've got a kid with mumps.
Not a chance.
Can't you see the clock without your glasses?
Not clearly.
Oh.
Glasses are such a nuisance, aren't they?
Well, what do you all do when you wake up at night and want to know what time it is?
I put my glasses on and I look at the clock.
Well, I just lie in bed and wait for the clock to chime. My father gave it to me when we married, my wife and I. It was 10 years before we even had a place to put it.
Do you wear glasses to bed?
Of course not. No one wears eyeglasses to bed.
The woman who testified that she saw the killing wears glasses. What about her?
Did she wear glasses?
Of course! The woman wore bifocals. I remember this very clearly. They looked quite strong.
That's right, bifocals. She never took them off.
Funny. I never thought of that.
I think it's logical to say that she was not wearing her glasses in bed, and I don't think she put them on to glance casually out the window. She testified that the murder took place the instant she looked out, and that the lights went off a split second later. She couldn't have had time to put on her glasses then. Now, perhaps this woman honestly thought she saw her boy kill his father. I say that she only saw a blur.
How do you know what she saw? Maybe she's farsighted. How does he know all these things?
Does anyone think there still is not a reasonable doubt?
I will always wonder, but there is a reasonable doubt.
I think she's guilty.
Does anyone else?
No, I'm convinced now. There is reasonable doubt.
You're alone.
I don't care whether I'm alone or not. I have a right.
Yes, you have a right.
Well, I told you, I think the kid's guilty. What else do you want?
Your arguments.
I gave you my arguments.
We're not convinced. We're waiting to hear them again. We have time.
Listen, what's the matter with you? You're the guy. You made all the arguments. You can't turn now. A guilty man is going to walk the streets. A murderer. He's got to die. Stay with me.
I'm sorry, I'm not convinced. I don't think I'm wrong often, but I guess I was this once. There is reasonable doubt in my mind.
We're waiting.
You're not going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion. It's going to be a hung jury. That's it.
There's nothing we can do about that except hope that some night, maybe in a few months, you might get some sleep.
We're all alone.
It takes a great deal of courage to stand alone.
Well, if it is a hung jury, there will be another trial, and some of us will point these things out to various lawyers.
All right.
Not guilty.
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 word. Charlotte, you've done it again.
Humble. It fits you perfectly.
And what's that object up there? It looks like cotton candy. Did you make it?
I did indeed. It's my egg sack.
What's inside it? Eggs?
514 of them.
You're kidding. Are you really gonna have 514 children?
If nothing happens, yes. Of course, they won't show up till next spring.
You don't seem very happy about this.
I guess I feel sad because I won't ever see my children.
Of course you will. We'll see all of them.
Wilbur, I don't feel good at all. My eggs and I may not make it back to the barn.
Charlotte, don't say that.
Now stop worrying about me. This is your big day today. I'm sure you'll win.
Ugh, what a night. I must have eaten like the remains of like 30 lunches. Oh, it was rich, my friends. Rich.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You'll probably have an attack of acute indigestion.
Don't worry about me. Wilbur's the one you should be worrying about.
What do you mean?
I've got some bad news for you. As I came past the pig next door, the one that calls himself Uncle, I noticed a blue ribbon in front of his pen. That means he won first prize.
Oh no.
Wait till Zuckerman gets a hankering for some fresh ham. He'll take the knife right to you, my boy.
Be still, Templeton. Don't pay any attention to him, Wilbur.
I'll bet he's so scared. He's gonna faint again.
No. Whatever will happen, will happen. I may not live as long as I'd like, but a good life is much more important than a long life. So, starting now, I'm gonna stop worrying about myself. There are more important things than just thinking about yourself all the time, like you, Templeton. You didn't even notice that Charlotte has made an egg sack.
Egg sack?
Up there. She's gonna become a mother. For your information, there are 514 eggs in that peachy little sack.
Well, congratulations. This has been a night.
Sorry about the blue ribbon, Wilbur, but you're being very brave about it.
Bravery is just one of the many things I've learned from you, Charlotte, my friend.
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou her maid art more fair than she. It is my lady, oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I wore a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek.
I me.
She speaks, oh, she speaks again, bright angel.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn, my love, now no longer be a Capulet.
Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?
But 'tis but thy name is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Or it be some other name. What's in a name? That's what we call a rose. By any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would he not be Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes. Without that title, Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself.
I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth I never will be Romeo.
What man art thou that thus bescreened in night so stumblest on my counsel?
By a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I it written, I would tear the word.
Art thou not Romeo and a Montague?
Neither, fair saint, if either thee dislike.
How camest thou hither? Tell me, and wherefore the orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and the place of death considering who thou art. If any of my kinsmen find me here.
With love's light's wings did I o'erperch these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out, and what love can do that dares love attempt, therefore thy kinsmen are no let to me.
If they do see thee, they will murder thee.
I have night's cloak to hide me from their sight. And but thou love me, let them find me here.
Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say aye, and I would take thy word. Yet if thou swearest, thou may prove false. O gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully.
Lady, by yonder blessed moon, I swear, that tips with silver all these fruit tree tops.
Oh, swear not by the moon and the inconsistent moon, that monthly changes in her circle orb.
What shall I swear by?
Do not swear at all, or if thou will, swear by the grace itself, and I believe thee.
If my heart's dear love...
Well, do not swear. Although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like lightning, which doth cease to be. Ere one can say it lightens. Sweet good night. The spot of love, my summer's ripening breath, may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. Good night, good night. A sweet repose and rest come to my heart as within my breast.
Oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied?
What satisfaction can thou have tonight?
The exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine.
I gave thee mine before thou did request it, and yet I would to give it again. My bounty is boundless as the sea. My love is as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have for thee. The both are infinite.
Juliet!
I hear some noise within, dear love. I do. I nod, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little. I will come again.
Oh, blessed night. I'm afeard, being in night, all this is but a dream.
These words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent of love be honorable, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow. Where and what time wilt thou perform the rite, and all of my fortunes at thy foot I lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world.
Madame!
I come anon. 1,000 times good night.
1,000 times the worse to want thy light. Love goes towards love as schoolboys from their books, but love from love towards school with heavy looks.
Haste, Romeo, haste!
My dear?
I have forgot why I did call thee back.
Let me stand here till thou remember it.
I shall forget to have thee still stand here, remembering how I loved thy company.
And I'll still stay, to have thee still forget, forgetting any other home but this.
Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till be tomorrow.
Sleep dwell upon thine eyes, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep and peace so sweet to rest.
Company member Andy Paris. Today, for the first time, we met someone who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Steger, owner of the shop in town. Refer to him as Matt.
Matt used to come into my shop. That's how I knew him.
It was the first time I heard him referred to as Matt instead of Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everyone?
Well, on the 2nd of October, I get a phone call about 10 after 7.
Doc O'Connor.
It was Matthew Shepard, and he said, "Can you pick me up at the corner of 3rd and Grand?" So anyhow, I pull up on a corner to see who, Matthew Shepard. You know, there's a little guy about 5'2", soaking wet. I bet you 97 pounds tops. They say he weighed 110, but I would not believe it. They also say he was 5'5" in newspapers. But this man, he was really only about 5'2", maybe 5'1". So he walks up to the window. I'm going to try to put it in steps so you can better understand the principle of this man. So he walks up to the window and I say, "Hi, are you Matthew Shepard?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm Matthew Shepard, but I don't want you to call me Matthew or Mr. Shepard. I don't want you to call me anything. My name is Matt, and I want you to know I'm gay, and we're going to go to a gay bar. Do you have a problem with that?" And I said,
Well, how are you paying? The fact is, Laramie doesn't have any gay bars, and for that matter, neither does Wyoming. So he was hiring me to take him to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour away. Matt was a blunt little dude. You know what I'm saying? He always was. But I liked him, because he was straightforward. You see what I'm saying? Maybe gay, but straightforward. You see what I'm saying?
I don't know, you know. How does any one person ever tell about another? You really should talk to my sister Romaine. She was a very close friend of Matthew's.
We never called him Matthew. Actually, most of the time we called him Choo Choo. You know, because we used to call him Matt Choo, and then we just called him Choo Choo. And whenever I think about Matthew, I think about his incredible beaming smile. I mean, he'd walk in, he'd be like, you know, and he'd just smile at everyone, and he'd make you feel so great. And he would like stare at people down at the coffee shop because he always wanted to sit at the end seat so that he could talk to me while I was working. And if someone was sitting there, he would just sit there and stare at them until they left. But Matthew definitely had a political side to him. I mean, he really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. That's the only thing I ever saw his TV tuned into. He was just really smart with political affairs, but not too smart at common sense type things. So he moved to Laramie to go to school.
Matthew was very shy when he first came in.
John Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
To the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some difficulty adjusting, but this was home for him, and he made that quite clear. And so his mousiness, his shyness gave way to a person who was excited about this track he was going to embark on. He was just figuring out wanting to work on human rights and how he was going to do that. And when that happens, this person begins to bloom a little bit. He was starting to say, wow, there are opportunities here. There are things I can do in this world. I can be important.
I did hear from Matthew about 48 hours before his attack. He told me that he just joined the gay and lesbian group on campus, and he was enjoying it. He was getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. He was just really stoked about school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, I think that's where he was headed, towards human rights, which only adds to the irony and the tragedy of this.
Let me tell you something else here. There's more gay people in Wyoming than meets the eye. I know for a fact. They're not particularly, what do you call them? Queens? Gay people. Queens. You know, run around type people. No, they're the ones that throw bales of hay, jump on horses, brand them, and kick butt. You see what I'm saying? As I always say, don't mess with Wyoming queer, because they will kick you in your behind. But that's not the point of what I'm trying to say. Because I know a lot of gay people in Wyoming. I know a lot of people, period. I've been lived up here some 40-odd years. You see what I'm saying? And I don't think Wyoming people give a dang one way or another if you're gay or straight. That's just what I said. It doesn't matter. If there's 8 men and 1 woman in a Wyoming bar, which is often the case, now you stop and say, who's getting what? You see what I'm saying? Now, geez, it don't take a big intelligent mind to figure that one out.
How can I describe what it's really like to be gay here in Laramie?
Catherine Connolly.
I was the first out lesbian or gay faculty member on campus, and that was in 1992. I was asked at my interview what my husband did, so I just came out then. Do you want a funny story? When you get here as a new faculty member, there's all these things you have to do. And so I was in my office, and I noticed that this woman called. I was expecting, it was a health insurance phone call, something like that. And so I called her back, and I could hear her. She's working on her keyboard, clicking away. And I said, "This is Kathy Connolly returning your phone call." And she said, "Oh, it's you." I thought, this is bizarre. And she said, I hear you're gay. I hear you are." I was like, uh-huh. And she said, "I hear you came as a couple." I'm one too, not a couple, just a person. And so she was a kind of lesbian who knew I was coming, and she wanted to meet me immediately. And she later told me that there were other lesbians that she knew who wouldn't be seen with me, that I would irreparably taint them, and that just to be seen with me could be a problem. I've done almost every teaching award that's possible on campus, and yet even last year, one of my students' course evaluations said, "She likes girls, and it shows. She's disgusting."
When I came here, I knew it was going to be hard as a gay man.
Jonas Sloanacker.
I'm not out at work, and I've been doing this job for 4 years. And I keep telling myself, people should live where they want to live. And there'd be times I'd go down to Denver, and I'd go to the gay bars, and people would ask me where I was from. And I'd say, Laramie, Wyoming. And I meet so many men down there from Wyoming. So many gay men who grew up here, and they're like, that is not a place where I can live. How can you live there? I had to get out, blah, blah, blah. But every once in a while, there'd be a guy. Oh gosh, I miss Laramie. I mean, I really loved it there. That's where I want to live. And you get the starry-eyed look in their eyes, and I'm like, if that's where you want to live, do it. I mean, imagine if more gay people stayed in small towns. But it's easier said than done, I guess.
Matthew's father, Dennis Shepard.
Matt's beating, hospitalization, and funeral focused worldwide attention on hate. Good is coming out of evil. People have said enough is enough. I miss my son, but I am proud to be able to say that he is my son.
I must speak with you, Abigail. Will you sit?
How do you come?
Friendly.
I don't like the woods at night. Pray you stand closer. I knew it must be you. When I heard the pebbles on the window, before I opened my eyes, I knew. I thought you'd come a good time sooner.
I had thought to come many times.
Why didn't you? I'm so alone in the world now.
Are you? I've heard that people ride 100 miles to see your face these days.
My face. Can you see my face?
Then you're troubled.
Have you come to mock me?
No. But I only hear that you go to the tavern every night and play shuffleboard with the deputy governor, and they give you cider.
I once or twice played the shuffleboard, but I have no joy in it.
This is a surprise, Abby. I thought to find you gayer than this. I'm told a troop of boys go step for step with you whenever you walk these days.
They do, but I have only lewd looks from the boys.
And you like that not?
I cannot bear no more lewd looks, John. My spirit's changed entirely. I ought to be given godly looks when I suffer from them as I do.
Oh, how do you suffer, Abby?
Why, look at my leg. I'm hosed all over from their damn needles and pins. That jab your wife gave me has not healed yet, you know.
Oh, it isn't.
I think sometimes she pricks it open again while I sleep.
Ah.
And George Jacobs, he comes again and again and raps me with his stick, the same spot every night all this week. Look at the lump I have.
Abby, George Jacobs is in the jail all this month.
Thank God he is. And bless the day that he hangs and lets me sleep in peace again. Oh, John, the world's full of hypocrites. They pray in jail. I'm told they pray in jail.
They may not pray.
And torture me in my bed while sacred words are coming from their mouths. Oh, it will need God himself to cleanse this town properly.
Abby, you mean to cry out to others?
If I live, if I am not murdered, I surely will, until the last hypocrite is dead.
Then there is no one good.
There is one. You are good.
Am I? How am I good?
Why, you taught me goodness, therefore you are good. It were a fire you walked me through, and all my ignorance was burned away. It were fire, John. We lay in fire. And from that night, no woman dare call me wicked anymore, but I knew my answer. I used to weep for my sins when the wind lifted out my skirts and some old Rebecca called me loose, and they knew burned away my ignorance. As bare as some December tree, I saw them all, walking like saints to that church, running to feed the sick and the hypocrites in their hearts. And God gave me strength to call them liars, and God made men listen to me. And by God, I will scrub the world clean for the love of him. Oh, John, I will make you such a wife when the world is white again. You will be amazed to see me every day, a light of heaven in your house. Why are you cold?
My wife goes to the trial in the morning, Abigail.
Your wife?
Surely you knew of it.
I do remember it now. How is she well?
As well as she may be. 36 days in that place.
You said you came friendly.
She will not be condemned, Abby.
You brought me from my bed to speak of her?
I come to tell you, Abby, what I will do tomorrow in the court. I would not take you by surprise, but give you all the good time to think on what to do to save yourself.
Save myself?
If you do not free my wife tomorrow, I'm set and bound to ruin you, Abby.
How? Ruin me?
I have rocky proof and documents that you knew the puppet were none of my wives, and you yourself bade Mary Warren stab that needle into it.
I bade Mary Warren?
You know what you do. You are not so mad.
Oh, hypocrites, have you won him too? John, why do you let them send you?
I warned you, Abby.
They send you. They steal your honesty and...
I have found my honesty.
No, this is your wife pleading. Your sniveling, envious wife. This is Rebecca's voice. Martha Corey's voice. You were no hypocrite.
I will prove you for the fraud you are.
And if they ask you why Abigail would ever do such a murderous deed, what will you tell them?
I will tell them why.
What will you tell them? You will confess to fornication in the court?
If you will have it so I will tell it. I say I will. If you can still hear, can you hear? You will tell the court you are blind to spirits and you cannot see them anymore. You will never cry witchery again, and I'll make you famous for the whore you are.
Never in this world. I know you, John. You are the moment seeking hallelujah that your wife will hang.
You mad. You murderous bitch.
Oh, how hard is it when pretense falls? But it falls. It falls. You have done your duty by her. I hope it is your last hypocrisy. I pray you will come again with sweeter news for me. I know you will. Now that your duty's done. Good night, John. Fear not. I will save you tomorrow. From yourself, I will save you.